Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining the webinar this morning. We're just giving it just a couple more minutes for some additional attendees to jump on board here. Then we'll be kicking off the ALALM Online Learning Center webinar here shortly. If everyone could really quick, I'm going to start sharing the screen here in just a second. So you should have something pop up on your own computer screen here, and you should be looking at the losscontrol.org website. If someone could please, in the attendee chat, just confirm that they can hear me and you guys can all see my screen as well. Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate that. Okay, just giving it a couple more minutes. It looks like we just have about 2 more attendees to join us. And if they don't make it on time, then they're going to miss out on all the fun today. Okay, folks, well, as we're going through this, I like to keep things as informal as possible. With that being said, I have muted you, so no one else can talk or step on me as I'm going through this webinar. But truly, if you have any questions throughout this actual webinar, it's going to take approximately 45 minutes from start to finish to walk through the entire system, discuss the ins and outs of the various programs and courses that are available to you, as well as administrative functions. At any given point in time, though, please feel free to use that attendee chat and ask any additional questions that you might have concerning the program. As I navigate through that, I will be addressing those questions as they pop up. I get notifications here on my end to address those. So again, feel free to ask anything you'd like concerning this program. Additionally, once we wrap this up, you'll have another opportunity to plug forth any additional questions that might have popped up during the course of the actual webinar itself. But otherwise, we're going to go ahead and just get this started. I think we've got the majority of the attendees on the call now. So again, I thank you for joining us this morning. The purpose of today's call is really to discuss and address the additional value-added service that the Alabama Municipal Insurance Corporation and the Municipal Workers' Compensation Fund provide through this service. And this is the online learning center that is offered through ALALM as a value-added service to serve your members and your employees' training needs. Over the years, we've been offering this program now for going on about 4.5 years at this point. The program has grown significantly over the years since the induction of this program and through the years of the maturity of this program. Additionally, as our program grows, we continue to add more training resources, spanning the entirety of local government entities, so really addressing the needs of law enforcement, HR, and really everything in between at that point. The courses themselves are all accessible online. They're available around the clock 24/7. So again, they can be accessed whether you're from your work computer, your home laptop, whether you're on a mobile device that are now the size of laptops nowadays anyways. You can access this training whenever it is convenient to do so. So we're going to walk through a couple different phases of this program. First, addressing the user interface itself, meaning how one of your frontline personnel or staff members will log into the training and take the training that's been made available to them. From that portion, we're going to talk about the ease of access in getting logged into the system, the ease of access from navigating through an actual course itself to earning a certificate of completion, and then following up on that through the full scale of administrative functions and capabilities for you all who have been identified or designated as the primary administrators or group administrators for your training account. So again, we're going to discuss some of the ways that you can use the administrative portion of the system to manage your personnel, break them into various groups or departments within the actual training account itself, as well as how you can manage training activities through the actual program and assessing the needs of your employees and the various departmental needs. So without further ado, in order to access this training, you're going to go directly to the losscontrol.org website. So if you plug in losscontrol.org, that is going to take you to the Loss Control Division website for this program. On this site, you're going to see there is some banner ads that kind of navigate through or change out on the center of the screen. This is the one that would give you access to the actual training site itself, or you can select at any given point in time the online training link. When I select the online training link, that's going to push me right into just an overview of the training program itself, what courses are available, kind of some general topics and course list links that you can access, but just, again, that brief overview of the training system itself. You've got this blue icon here where it states click here. That is going to launch you right into the login page itself, or you can also use these additional tabs here to assess what training content is currently available to you all. So for instance, we've got the general laws control topics or the law enforcement specific topics. As you can see, there is no holding back when it comes to the availability of course topics that are provided to you. Through this program as well, there's a mix or rotation of standard year-round course access, meaning these are topics that have been identified as kind of mandatory or kind of necessity type programs that are generally utilized throughout the training calendar year. Additionally, we break additional course access down on a quarterly basis, and really the idea behind this is to provide a sampling of access throughout the training calendar year, giving you more options to utilize without providing too much to choose from the get-go. Additionally, at any given point in time, if you have an immediate training need and there is not a course that's currently available to you, or it might have been one that expired in a previous quarter, you can always give us a shout and let us know, and we pass that request along. And generally, 9 times out of 10, we're going to have no issues granting you that access, even if it was offered in a previous quarter of the training calendar year. So you all actually have a designated account manager. His name is Steve DeStacy. Steve has joined us on the call today as well. Following this webinar, we'll be providing you with his direct contact information. Truly, his sole purpose is to assist you from start to finish in getting this program launched. So, working with you to conduct that needs assessment, identifying what are some of the trends that you have going on within your own entity that you'd like to address through refresher type training concepts. The majority of these courses are all roughly 30 to 45 minutes in length from start to finish. That it's designed as that self-paced program, so it's easy to get in and get out and utilize the training, again, when it's convenient for you and your employees to do so. But again, Steve DeStacy is going to be your go-to guy for any additional questions you have about this service, getting set up, getting employees added into your account. Our sole purpose is truly to make this as streamlined and efficient as possible for you all and for your employees to get set up and start utilizing the program. This is a free program. It's a value-added service that is paid for on your behalf. So you can utilize as much content throughout this training program as you wish. There are some restrictions that we will be addressing in regards to the number of courses that employees can take throughout an annual basis, and we'll get to that once we jump into the system. But again, we're going to go ahead and jump into the site, and as we go through that, if you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to use that attendee chat through this any meeting service, and just let me know, and we'll get to those questions as we navigate through this. Once you are on, I'm going to navigate back to that lostcontrol.org website here. On the actual training site, we're going to click here and navigate to the actual login page itself. Once you're on the login page, again, that same information is somewhat reiterated here, where you can view a list of the courses currently being offered. You can click this course list link here. It is going to provide you access to view all of the courses that are currently assigned or available in that training account. Additionally, you can use these plus icons to the left of the course titles, and that's actually going to give you a brief description of what that course details, or kind of that course overview for that matter. So you click on those, you can see that course summary, the time or approximate time of that course from start to finish, what those learning objectives are, as well as what the key topics that are included throughout that actual training course. Navigating back to the actual login screen itself, though, we're going to go ahead and log in. I have set myself up with a test account, so some of the views may be a little bit different, but we're going to navigate through that as a user on the account first and foremost, and then jumping into that administrative functionality as an admin on this training account. And let's go in and get logged in here. what you're seeing is something that we use on the back end of our system here to gain access and get logged into the system, or really to control your accounts here. Okay, once I plug in my username and password, the username and password is going to be unique for all users within the system. Whenever we get employees added into the account, and really the process that we take is, if once you're interested in getting this program launched, you're actually going to receive from Steve to Stacy, or you can download it directly from this site here where it says to add your employees, please click here. That's going to download for you, and I'll just test that out for you. As you can see in the bottom left-hand corner of my screen, it downloads what's called an employee upload form. And sorry about that. We just got a message from Rodney saying you can't see the screen. Let's take a look here. Bear with me here. Rodney, I would ask, you might just try to access that link again. It does look like everyone else has access to that, but it's showing on my end that you're having difficulty connecting. You might just try to log out and then reuse that link to log back in. Looks like everyone else does have access. You might just have some connectivity issues on your end that are preventing you from seeing the screen. If not, please keep in mind as well, Rodney, if you can't get that access or you can't get that back up and running, we are actually recording this entire session, and following this, we'll be sending out the actual recorded link for anyone who attended this. So if you have any issues continuing to get connected here, we'll be actually sending out this recording for you to access and watch it at a later time if that works better for you. All right, jumping ahead here at this point, once I get logged in the system, I'm sorry to backtrack there, the employee upload form itself can be filled out by administrators or by you all, even your department heads for that matter. And once you have that form filled out, you can actually send that right back to us. And we're actually going to do the work for you. We're going to get your employees added into the system. Steve DeStacy is going to handle that again as well. And then once those employees are added, we will coordinate directly with you when it comes time to assigning training access. Generally, what we do when assigning that training access is go through the system and work with you to identify, are there any specific training needs that you have where you want to address, or break that down by department or by employee, or you might choose that you want to open up access for all users and all courses within the system. Keep in mind, though, there is a restriction within the system itself. We do restrict training access to the course content on a quarterly basis. So employees are allowed to complete up to 5 course completions each quarter for a total collective roughly 20 contact hours for the entire training calendar year. That is something, if you're new to the program or you're getting set up, right now we are at this point 6 months into the year. So based on this calendar year, you would not be able to catch back up, so to speak, but you would be able to take 5 additional courses this quarter and then 5 additional courses next quarter. Once we get back into the 2018 calendar year, for that matter, you'll have access to those 20 completions, 5 completions each quarter throughout the year. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into the system here. Once I log into the system, I've got my username and password. Again, that username is going to be standard or unique actually for all users within the system. We do work with you to identify if there's an employee email address that is specific to your entity. Of course, we always want to go that route. That's something that we all know is always going to be unique in the system for all users in there. Passwords, initially when we set those up, we do provide somewhat of a standard password for all users. However, users do have the opportunity, once they're already set up, to log in and update that password to something that is their own or easier to remember on their own. Once you log into the system itself, you are going to be greeted. Tony, welcome Tony, the Alabama League of Municipalities is pleased to offer the online training to your organization. This is a standard welcome message that all users are going to see when they log into the system. From this point, I've got a couple options available to me. The goal here from an end user perspective is to push the user from A to Z, meaning getting access or gaining access into the system, into the actual system accessing the training courses and earning certificates of completion. We're not designed, or we haven't designed this program to try to trick users or make it difficult. From a user perspective, we really want to focus our efforts on ensuring that they can easily gain access to the system and they can right away gain access to the courses that have been made available to them. There's really not much else from an end user perspective that they have available to them to navigate through. On this particular instance, I am set up as an administrator on this account, so I'm circling on the right-hand side of the screen this admin link. If this was just a standard user on the training account, this link, this admin link, would actually be replaced with what's called a reports link, and that reports link is specific to that individual user. It's not something where they would have reports or access to all training activity being conducted on this account. It would just be specific for that end user themselves. I've also got my progress and certificate section here. This actually allows me to go through and I can look at current training progress within the system, or I can also go back and view all certificates that have been earned throughout the life of this program. In this instance, because this is a test account, I don't have any earned certificates at this point to showcase, but that would have, so to speak, the lifespan of that user's training account and the course completions that they've completed throughout the span of that program being offered. So again, this dates back, 4+ years for individuals who have been using it since the induction of this program and since it was, actually launched or kicked off. But again, that is going to track and document the full lifespan of this training program and all of that user completion data that's been documented throughout the span of that program. That being said, we do maintain all training results indefinitely. You're never going to lose track of any of that training progress. Everything's housed on our own servers. So we keep stringent documentation of all training records for users throughout the life of the program. Even if you have employees that leave your entity, go elsewhere, of course we can inactivate user access, but we will always maintain the documentation of training that was completed while they served underneath your entity, for that matter. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and return to the training site, and I'm actually going to go back to that welcome screen so you can see where we navigate from here to gain that course access and to access those courses that have been made available to us. So I click this link, click here to see your courses and get started. Again, because this is a test account, I've got access to everything that's currently available. But again, as an administrator, you'll have that opportunity to really dictate what course progress or what course access that your individual personnel would have access to. And we're going to walk and kind of talk through that once we get to the admin portion of this system and start discussing that. As you can see here in the top portion of my screen, this allows us, it gives us an opportunity to filter or choose by course category. Because there's a plethora of courses that are made available to this program, this actually allows you to, so to speak, limit or filter out any courses that you really just don't want to see. If I was interested in only looking at my human resources training programs that are made available to me, I can select human resources. It's going to filter down that list significantly to only show me those HR training topics that have been made available to me. Additionally, the same applies. You can choose multiple categories. So if I was interested in health and wellness, management, HR, and let's just say safety and environmental, I can make those additional selections, and it's going to make those viable options for me to choose from at that point. Again, just to reiterate though, the AMIC and MWCF loss control divisions are and have approved funding for 5 courses per quarter for each employee. There is a restriction in place. Once that end user has completed up to their 5 topics, if they were to go and access or attempt to access another course topic after those 5 completions in a single quarter, the system would not allow them to do so. They would let them know that they've reached their limit and course access will be reset at the end of the quarter for them to utilize more or additional training content. Once you've identified the training courses that you want to actually utilize, it is as simple as clicking on that course topic and allowing that course to kick off at that point. So if I find the course topic that I'm looking for in particular, the science of employee engagement, I'm going to select that course topic, and I am going to mute this right now so it doesn't step on me as I'm presenting. But immediately that course is going to kick off. You can see that there's no loading times associated with that, and that's one of the things about this system that really make it kind of stand apart from the rest. You should not have any access or any issues whatsoever accessing the training modules or the training content that's made available throughout the training courses themselves. Those courses are designed using the ADDIE method or the ADDIE concept, more or less meaning that this is assigned or created for adult learners or keeping adult learners in mind. So it is a variety of text-based or primarily text-based learning. There are video segments that are scattered throughout the training. There's progress checks scattered throughout the training that keep that user engaged with the actual material itself. And then finally, a summary or final exam assessment based on the program that was actually just covered or the details of that program that was just covered. That being said, the questions themselves, again, it's not designed to trick the end user or confuse the end user. You know, the goal here is really to pull out and derive from the content that was just delivered, and that's what culminates into the final exam itself. So it's important, you know, that the users keep track of or, you know, identify when they're going through those progress checks, making notes of those progress checks scattered throughout the system, as those oftentimes culminate into that final exam at the end of each course. The final exam must be completed by the end user with a passing grade in order to earn a certificate of completion. With that being said, they have unlimited number of attempts, or failures I should say, in order to pass that actual exam. That being said, we do track and document every attempt that it took a user to take and actually pass the exam. So what that means from an administrative perspective is, assuming you provided sexual harassment training to all your users. If you had an employee who you identified that it took 15 attempts, for instance, to complete that sexual harassment training, first and foremost, you definitely want to lock that employee away from everyone else. But additionally, on top of that, you really want to use that information and use that data to assess if there's any underlying trends or if there's any underlying issues that might need to be addressed. So by tracking and documenting the amount of time that a user spent in the training material all the way down to the second, the number of attempts that it took them to actually pass or complete that exam, this is all data that is readily available to you all as administrators within the system itself. So next we're going to talk about the actual navigation of the training content itself. We've discussed that this is designed as a pace yourself training program, although again, we do document the amount of time that it takes for a user to navigate through the actual training course from start to finish. On the left-hand side of the screen here, you're going to see it is broken down by several course modules. In the upper right-hand corner of the page, you can see the actual page numbers or listings associated with each module, starting with the introduction module, ending with the summary or final exam module. So as I navigate through this, keep in mind, if I open this back up, you'll notice that once I get to lesson 1, I can no longer access, or I can't jump or skip to the upcoming lessons that are available here. I could try to click on these all day, but it's not going to allow me to jump or skip to the final exam, meaning as a user, I cannot jump into the system, start from the introduction module and say, I know all this material, and jump right to the summary or final exam to complete that. They must go through the system itself. Now, they can still navigate through the pages if they choose to read through the actual training material as opposed to listening to the audio that's associated with that. That's just fine. They simply turn off the audio on their computer and use the next page icon in the upper right-hand corner of my screen to navigate through that. I'm simply going to walk us through a handful of these courses here, or just a few pages of this, just to show you kind of a breakdown of how the courses are delivered, what content's made available to you, and how that can be accessed. Again, this is that blended learning approach where it does sprinkle in video content that's tagged along with the training content itself. There's also graphics, case studies scattered throughout the training itself, fun facts that are implemented throughout the training, as well as the opportunity to really assess the training as you're conducting that, for that matter. Once I get here, again, I can follow my pages, and I can also use that module menu. You'll notice again that I still can't access lesson 2 unless I go to that next module. And at that point, that does put me right into lesson 2 for that matter. I can't go and still go back and look at the previous lessons unless I use those previous modules or navigation buttons there. So as you can see, with the content itself, we do try to ensure that all the content is delivered on one page. You know, the goal more than anything is to prevent any called unnecessary scrolling. So most of the information is going to be presented on that one page. You're not going to have to scroll through and try to find additional information on the screen. We do try to make sure that that's how that content is presented. So again, there's no opportunity to have to scroll through and find the additional material that's presented here. I am going to jump through quickly, and I'm in my my test portion of the system here, so I can jump around freely as opposed to a standard employee for that matter. So I am going to jump right in here to go to the final exam session, and that way I can show you exactly what that looks like. So I'm going to that summary wrap-up. On that final exam, we're going to go ahead and pull this up here just so you can see how users interact with the actual final exam. And actually, in this instance, I can't show that for today's purposes because there is an additional restriction in place that does require the users to spend a total amount of time or a minimum amount of time in the actual training material to or before progressing to the actual final exam itself. This was a restriction that was put in place, again, to ensure that users don't just click through the system and think that they know everything and can complete the actual training. It does require that user to spend an appropriate amount of time in the material and then navigate that. So I apologize, because of this restriction, I am unable to access the final exam at this portion, but we can certainly discuss what that looks like. So from a final exam perspective, it's generally anywhere between 10 to 15 questions at most. It does allow you, again, the maximum number of attempts is unlimited, so you can attempt that final exam as many times as it takes to actually pass or complete that exam. Beyond that, though, you are required a minimum of an 80% pass percentage in order to earn a certificate of completion. That being said, from an administrative standpoint, and we'll show you this here later in the demo, but from an administrative standpoint, you can actually choose what that minimum pass percentage is going to be for each and every course topic. So you might decide, for instance, that for harassment training or some of the more mandated training topics, that you actually want to provide that content and ensure that all users have a 100% understanding of the training material itself. So ensuring that there is, without a doubt, 100% understand that material, so you could, in essence, raise the bar for that training course and raise that pass percentage all the way up to 100% in 5% increments. You can't go below 80%, but you can certainly raise the bar and raise that up to 100%. Again, we'll showcase that once we get to the admin portion of the system and go from there. At this point, we wanted to break down, we wanted to show you how a user logs in, how they gain access to their courses, where they can identify their certificates of completion, and how they earn a certificate of completion by navigating through the course material. I just want to take a pause here, and if anyone has any additional questions in regards to what programs are available, how many completions, or if there's anything else that I haven't addressed that you'd like to know about from an end user perspective, please drop that question in the chat box. We can address that now. Otherwise, we are going to get ready to move forward and navigate to the administrative portion of the system. We'll just give it a moment here to see if anyone has any questions, and then we'll pick up right where we left off. All right, it doesn't look like anyone has any questions. I'm going to go with homage that no news is good news. So we're going to continue right along here. Again, please let me know if you have any questions. This next portion of the system is really what we consider the bread and butter of the system. It allows you to go in and really take full control of this training program. This is really going to be the most applicable for you all as administrators on your account. So we're going to talk through how we set up various administrative rights and access. How employees engage with the system based upon what you've actually provided them access to. So we discussed earlier that only those users who have been identified as an administrator on the account would even see this admin icon here. If it's just a standard user, that admin icon is going to be replaced with a standard reports icon that would give a user reports access to the actual training content. So if I select admin here, that's going to shoot me right over into the administrative portion of the system. It gives me several options to choose from. Welcome to your administration site. As you can see here, starting with users and groups all the way down to get certificates. These are the same options that I have in the admin menu on the left-hand side of the screen. This gives you a brief overview, first and foremost, of what those tabs can actually do for you. So users and groups allows you to organize users within your university into various groups or departments as it breaks down within your own entity. We really want to try to mimic the setup that you have within your own entity, and that way, from a reports access to collecting data or completion data within the system, by breaking your users into the various groups or departments, it's going to allow you, from an administrative perspective, various tools to, again, run reports by division or by department, even making specific course assignments by division or by department within your entity. So it is certainly encouraged when we're setting up staff and getting employees set up within the system that we do incorporate and break those users down into the various groups or departments that they're set up within your own entity. So let's just take a look at that. We're going to work our way from top all the way down, again, discussing those course pass percentage settings, adding users into the system, and everything in between. So if I start and select users and groups on the left-hand side of the screen, this is just, again, a test account that allows us to break down users and groups and how they're set up within the system. So we're going to talk about a couple ways that we can set up groups or departments. As you can see here, we've got just a sample group set up for the police department. Then we've got subgroups that are set up under that police department and even additional subgroups beyond that. So what that means to us, if we're thinking about a police department, for instance, police department being the main department. Well, as we know, underneath the police departments, there's other divisions. It might be K-9, it might be a drug task force, whatever the case may be, a patrol division, dispatchers. That allows us to break that police department group into additional subgroups beyond that. But as we all know, even within those subgroups, there might be additional breakdowns. Again, you don't have to use the system this way. You do not have to create groups or departments, but it certainly does lend itself when you go to running specific reports or even providing what we refer to as group administrative access in the system. So there's always going to be a primary administrator on the account. There can also be just a standard admin, and we're going to talk about that here in a second and what those various administrative rights are. But it's important to know that if you are a primary administrator on your account, you do have the option to, one, break those users down by groups or department, but also delegate authority down to department supervisors for that matter. That way, from a primary administrator perspective or just a standard admin on the account, you would really be able to dictate what you want everyone to complete, maybe from an HR mandate perspective. Maybe you want to ensure that all employees, department-wide or entity-wide for that matter, complete sexual harassment training between now and June 30th, 2018. And so as that primary admin or primary administrator, you would have that opportunity to provide access to all employees regardless of the group or department that they're set up underneath. But then we have what's called group administrators. So we're going to take a look and see exactly how that works just using this assessment right here. If I pull this up right here, I've got my police department group. I'm set up in here, as well as Richard Buttonshaw. And you can see here that Tony Green is set up as a group admin, whereas Richard Buttonshaw is set up as the primary admin on the account. So again, what that means is Richard would have all the opportunity in the world, and he would have all access to control any and all users within the system. Richard would also be able to set up various groups or departments within the system. So they would have that full access to reports for all employees, anything else in between there. They could do that for the entire training account. Whereas myself, in this particular instance, I am set up as a group administrator. We can see those privileges and those group admin rights here. Again, from a group admin perspective, I can only see and I can only raise the bar for myself either to being a standard user or a content admin, but I can't make myself a full-scale admin or a full-scale administrator, primary admin on the account, because I don't have that access. I can only control my own access and either keep that as is or lower that access as necessary. If I was to look at from, Richard Buttonshaw as the primary administrator, we've got really four, call it breakdown or rights of administrators. One, that primary admin, again, just to reiterate, they have full access to all users, all reports tools, all courses. They can control anyone and everything on the actual training account. They're also considered that primary contact for the organization or for that entity. The next step down is just what we refer to as a standard administrator. So a standard admin has all of the same rights that a primary admin does. They can control the full account. They have access to assign or make assignments for any and all users. They can set up or delete groups or departments, but they are just not the primary contact for that training account. The next level down, or the third administrative level access that we have, is what's called that group admin. And this is what we talked about, where you can delegate that authority down all the way to the department level, and also give those department heads the capability of making their own course assignments, assessing their own individual personnel training needs outside of what you as that primary administrator has initially provided them access to. And so by setting up group administrators, you are delegating that administrative right all the way down to, say, the chief of police or the training coordinator within the police department, or maybe it's another HR clerk that you want to have them run reports or do something along those lines for a specific group. By designating someone as a group administrator, you're giving them the full admin capabilities, such as running reports or making assignments, but they can only do so for their specific department that they're set up in. That also can be broken down by these additional groups. So for instance, since I am set up personally as a group administrator for the police department, that means I would have access to run reports or make assignments for all users, not only in the police department, but all of the police department subgroups. If I was, for instance, a group administrator of just the patrol division, I would have access to any users within the patrol division as well as those subgroups. So it does kind of create a hierarchy of administrative access and how administrators can delegate that authority down to give that administrative access to the lowest level they deem necessary. This is not something you have to do. Again, we encourage it just to have more opportunities for administrators or department heads to engage with the program and assess what their specific needs are. And most of the time, for instance, from an HR perspective, if you're the director of HR, you're an HR clerk, whatever the case may be, your sole focus is generally on human resource topics, ensuring that your employees complete their harassment training, their diversity training, whatever the case may be there. But you might not always have the most insight in regards to the various departmental needs. For instance, you might not know exactly what training needs to be conducted for your public works employees, your water wastewater division employees, and you leave that or give that ability down to the department head level to where then they can assess what those kind of professional training needs are, or professional development, personal development training needs are for their employees that are specific to their job function. So that's really where that theory and the idea of various administrative rights comes into play, and that's really where it's most applicable. Again, if you have questions concerning this or how we can implement various departmental rights or administrative rights throughout your existing training account, definitely let us know. We can kind of walk you through that on a case-by-case basis after we really conduct that needs assessment with you and identify what it is you're trying to achieve. It's as simple as also creating a new group. Again, we try to accomplish this when we complete that employee upload form for you, but oftentimes if there's not groups listed, again, Steve DeStacy might reach out to you, and maybe that was an oversight, but he'll confirm with you if that's something that you wanted to add additional groups, or if you just meant to leave them ungrouped and everyone can have access to whatever. Our goal is not to tell you how you can do it, but it's our goal to really work with you to conduct that needs assessment and identify the best course of action for the program you're looking to implement there. So definitely let us know. There's no questions that are out of the ordinary that we haven't heard yet. So we like to think that in the 13 years that we've been providing these types of services, that we figured out most of the ins and outs and what works best. Yes, there was a question that just came up from Rodney Shepard. He asked, can we demonstrate how to assign individual courses to an entire group? Absolutely, and that's coming up in the next section here underneath the license manager, so good timing for that question. If we pull up and we look at, we've got the users and groups, and another question from Sandy just came up. I have groups of users that are not computer-based that I would like to include in the training. Is there any way to present courses to groups and supplementally quiz them to receive a certificate of completion? That's a yes and a no, and we'll definitely address that here in a second. But how training can be conducted in groups and made available, we can actually document what we refer to as third-party training. So Sandy, if you wanted to conduct a training program in-house with a group of users, as again, we understand that oftentimes public works employees, for instance, they don't always have easy access to a computer program. They can review the materials or go about it in that manner. So if you're looking to conduct this in a group session, it would be as simple as logging into your training account. If you are that department head or if you're that primary administrator, pulling up the course that you're looking to utilize. It doesn't matter if you've utilized this training previously, meaning if you're doing this in kind of various groups of groups, for that matter, you'll always have access to existing or completed training content. The only caveat to that is the subsequent quiz that would be joined with that. Now, naturally, you can conduct that in a group training session. You can walk through that quiz as a group, for that matter. But instead of earning a certificate of completion, we just document the training results as being completed. So that would actually sync with your reports. What I'm going to do, and because this is a test account, I don't have that activated, but we're going to turn this on really quick so I can show you exactly what that looks like. Okay. So let me jump back in here, and I might have to log back out and log back in just to see that access set up. Nope, I do not. So let's just talk about that really quick, and then we'll get to the other question about assigning to that in groups, just because this other question is a little further down the list here. So let's just address that now. That is an option that we can activate on your training account. It's called Third-Party Training Tracker. As you can see, I just activated that for this particular account, and it allowed me for that to pop up. What we do, and again, we can assist you in getting this set up initially, but you're going to see how easy that is to create a new third-party training course, update those completion records for one or multiple users in the system, and how you can repurpose that. So for instance, if you were conducting a general safety slips, trips, and falls training program with, say, your public works employees, we would go ahead and we'd have this set up. Let's just plug this in here. Slips, trips, and falls. Training provider could be, let's just say, risk manager or safety coordinator. The training type, was this conducted in the classroom session? Was this a conference or a seminar? So keep in mind, you can use this actually for other purposes outside of just documenting training courses that were conducted or our proprietary content that was conducted in the classroom session. So I could choose that was conducted in the classroom. This is being conducted for our public works employees. Course description is not necessary. You can add that in if you wanted to. Kind of just helps keep more or better documentation of the training that's being conducted as well. Same thing applies for credit hours. Is that something that you want to actually track and document? It is optional. It's not required, but you can say 1 hour. Whatever the case may be, 0.5, it's just document the number of credits that should be worth. Once I create that actual course, now it's available for me to repurpose and assign credit. So much like I assign courses to users and groups, I would do the same exact thing. I would see if this was conducted for my public works employees, I would choose that group or department out of the system. In this instance, I'm just going to choose police department because that's what we've got set up here. Once I choose who that's being assigned to, I hit submit. It works through that assignment, and then I can at this point go back and document the results. I can also repurpose that training at any given point in time. Once that lives in a third-party tracking system, it actually allows me to go through and I can update results at any given point in time. So if I run back to the third-party training, I can at this point view and update third-party course results. So I know that was assigned to a group of users within the system. I could either choose that by user, or I could choose by that specific course topic, slips, trips, and falls. I can see who's been assigned that, meaning who had access to that, and I can complete what's called a batch update, and I can assign that score or grade or attendance or that date of completion for all users. Or if this was done individually, maybe you pulled an employee aside and they had to complete a specific training program. You did that in an instructor-led type setting. You can do this as well. So you can either choose to edit results by user or by using that batch update. And if I use batch update, that's going to apply this for all of those users who I've selected here. It does give me an opportunity to select those users again, or I can do that by group here. But if I just go through here and I say attended, or I can say completed, there's no rhyme or reason on what I have to implement for the score or grade. We could just say passed. The date that was actually completed by, approved by, this is important to have in here, so you want to document who was the, call it the moderator for that, or who instructed that session, or who might be approving this. So it could be HR director. Whatever the case may be, you have the opportunity to plug in whatever you want there. We're going to do that for the police department group. We're going to choose that specific course. And at this point in time, this course is now being assigned and documented as being completed. We do have a phase 2 that's working up on this actual utility tool, which is going to allow us to award certificates of completion. I think we're still about a month or two away from that. But as I said, as of right now, that's immediately synced with your reports that you have online. So you can see here, now if I go to my reports, I've got third-party training, online university data, or all data. But the secondary, or the next step, is to make a certificate of completion readily available for that. So I hope that does answer your question. If you have any additional questions concerning that, I'd love to set up, again, a one-on-one to kind of walk you through how how we can set that up for your entity, Sandy, or again, answer any additional questions you might have. But for the purpose of this webinar, we're going to navigate away from this, but I certainly would like to address any additional questions you have concerning this moving forward. Rodney, to address your question, can we demonstrate how to assign individual courses to an entire group? Absolutely. So that is actually done in the next portion of the system underneath the license manager. One thing I did not address is when you add new users to the system, you can always pull up, and let's just do this really quick, add a new user, and then that's going to show you how this differentiates between adding courses to a single user versus adding courses to a group of users. So if I wanted to go back here, I'm going to go to users and groups. I would simply add a new user. This might be for new employees that you have coming on throughout the calendar year, or after we've conducted that initial mass upload for that matter. You can always add in additional users into the system. So I could just say test user, their title, serial number, email, that's all optional for that matter. But the username and password are required, so I would say I'll be setting them up as a user. Again, as I'm logged in here as a group administrator, I cannot grant anyone administrative type access aside from group administrative access. I can only assign someone the level of access that I want them to have within my own group for that matter. For this instance, we're just going to leave them as a user. We can plug in some additional data here if we wanted to. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and create that. Once I've created that, you're going to notice there's been 2 additional tabs that popped up. I can choose that Access tab now. And this is where I would go to assign individual user access, meaning I've just added someone. I immediately want to grant them access to the training courses that are currently available. That is one method to go about assigning training access, but as you guys can probably see, this is not the most efficient method for that matter. So if you're looking to conduct large or bulk course assignments to a large group of users, it's actually going to be conducted in the license manager. The license manager gives you a top-down view of all the training content that's available to you currently, and also identifies when that training content is set to expire. As we discussed, courses do rotate through on a quarterly basis. So you're going to see that these courses are available until October 2nd, 2017. And that's really because we don't reset access over a weekend. October 2nd would fall on a Monday, and at that point would allow us to go through and make sure that there's no break in employee training access for that matter. So when I pull that up, however, at the top of the screen, we can see assign or remove courses. And Roddy, this is where we address your question, assign that to a group of users or even groups by department for that matter. So I can choose to assign courses by user, which gives me the option to choose either all courses, or I can choose multiple course selections or specific course selections that I want to apply. And then below, I've got the option now. I chose to assign courses to users at first. So if I just wanted to select a handful of users, multiple users that are in random departments, for instance, I can do so by choosing the users within that list. That being said, I can also do that by group of users, or meaning by department. So again, I can choose the course options I want to make available. I can also choose the groups or departments that I want to make that available to. As we remember, we have several groups or departments set up in this account already, starting with the police department, but even breaking it down by those subgroups, as we can see here. So I could choose by group, which would apply whatever course selections I choose to all users right there in the system itself. Ryan, does that answer your question, or any additional questions you might have concerning that? All right, thank you, sir. But yeah, that's the most quick and efficient method. Once we choose to assign those courses, keep in mind too, we can also remove course access from users using that same utility tool. Maybe you assign something to a group of users that you didn't want to. You can always go back and correct that with the ease of just choosing those same options and removing those from the users. At this point, we're going to navigate and jump right to the reporting section. We've got about 8 minutes left in this, so I want to make sure that we touch on all sections here and then leave a couple minutes to answer any additional questions you might have. Underneath the report section, this is really that bread and butter of our system, though, that gives you a wealth of information that you can utilize here. So again, we discussed we can track that online university data. We can track the third-party training data, meaning this is what we implemented if something was conducted in that classroom type session. Or we can combine that data, meaning track all usage data. The next section down here is looking at the report options that you have available to you, starting with courses completed all the way down to user breakdown. Those are going to provide you various types of reports or data that you're looking to obtain. Additionally, you can hover over these question marks to the right of each report at any given point in time. It's going to tell you exactly what those reports are going to do for you. The next section, though, is choosing, once you've made your report type selection, who do you want to run that report for? Do you want to run that for groups of users? You want to run that for specific users? Or maybe you want to run that completion report for a specific course topic to identify who has or has not completed a training course that's been made available to them. The third section down here is choosing the period of time that you wanted to run that report for. We offer you the current month, the current year, or again, between specific date ranges. So if this was an instance where you had required all personnel to complete sexual harassment training between July 1, 2016 and June 30th, 2017. At this point, we're 18 days past the due date or when those courses were made available, and we want to identify who has or has not completed the training during that time frame. As simple as plugging in that time frame, making that course selection that we identified, such as harassment training, and identifying who has or has not completed that. And the last section down here is choosing how you want to view that material. You've got 4 options, but really 2 of them are the most utilized. That's those first 2 listed there. And HTML is going to provide you the information is going to pop up right front and center on your screen. So you'll be able to see that material again right front and center. Or the CSV option is actually going to spit that out in an Excel document. The system's very responsive in the amount of turnaround time, so it's not going to take forever to download that file or gain access to it. But with that being said, it's going to spit that out in a very nice, clean, bare bones format, and you can run that for the entire year. You'll notice I hit run report. There's that report there for me. And because this is a test account, it's not going to show me a whole lot of information here. But again, I wanted to show how we can break down assessing between the online university data, meaning users that completed that training by themselves as a user logging into the site, or if that was completed in a third-party environment, such as a classroom training session for a course. That's how that information is currently documented, and again, we do look to add on the option here within the next couple of months where certificates of completion will also be associated with the training that was conducted in the group session. All right, jumping back into the system here, we've got just a few more minutes, so I wanted to make sure we covered just the final two topic areas. We've got the settings section. Previously, I alluded to going through and being able to update the actual test settings, and this is where you can find that. Otherwise, settings are pretty standard here. You can update account contact information, or you can update third-party training settings, but we really want to look at the test settings that are associated with this. As we discussed, the default is that 80% pass percentage, but for each and every course topic, you do have the opportunity to change that from 80% to 100% in 5% increments. So you can go through again, as we kind of alluded to earlier, if you wanted to ensure 100% compliance or satisfaction with, say, harassment training, you would find that course topic, set the bar to 100% for that, and at that point, it would require all employees to obtain a 100% pass completion there. In the last section in particular, order history does not really apply to you all, as this training is being applied to your account automatically on a quarterly basis. There's nothing that you have to do to go through the system. Also, as we discussed, if you missed a course one quarter and you wanted that tax back on, you'd be able to contact your account manager, Steve Stacy, and he's going to be able to give you all that good information as well. The last section here is the Get Certificate section. As we mentioned earlier, a standard user has the opportunity to look at, or once they complete a training course, they have the opportunity to download a certificate of completion immediately or right away. With that being said, from an administrative standpoint, you can also obtain certificates of completion from the system for any and all users for the proprietary online training content that was completed. Again, we'll be adding then, hopefully sooner than later, within the next couple of months, the ability to distinguish between online training and third-party training completions, which would actually distinguish on that certificate of completion that training was conducted in a classroom session. That being said, I can choose the users that I want to run or obtain those certificates of completion for, and I can also plug in an entire date range. So it's going to scour the system for me and identify all the certificates of completion that I can download directly from the system. Now again, because this is a test account, it's going to tell me no results found, but naturally within your own entity account, that's going to give you a lot of access. It's going to spit those PDFs or those certificates out in clean PDF files that are easy to identify by the employee name and the course name that they took. So that way, if you're still keeping personnel folders and you want to keep stringent documentation of certificates of completion, you can obtain that directly from the system. It's going to spit that out in a big zip file for you, so then you can take and pull those certificates out individually for each user. At this point, too, from an administrative perspective, once I've completed doing all the admin functions that I wanted to do and I wanted to return back to my own training, I would just select that link and go back into the courses or the training access that's been made available to me. At this point in the webinar, folks, we are on the last couple minutes here, so I wanted to open up an opportunity. I know we started a couple minutes late while we waited for some users to get or join the call, but are there any additional questions that were not addressed right now and that you'd like for us to address collectively with the group? Otherwise, if you have any additional questions, I'm going to be right here in our chat box. I'm typing in your account manager's information. Again, his name is Steve Stacy. He's going to be your go-to guy for all questions moving forward. Again, his sole purpose is to assist you from start to finish on getting your employees added into the system, making course assignments, or again, answering any additional questions that you might have. Also, if you would like a one-on-one demo with him, you'll actually be able to just give him a shout directly. And I'm typing and talking at the same time, so I apologize. But you can give him a shout or shoot an email. Again, he'd be happy to set you up with a one-on-one demo, or if you wanted to invite other department heads to attend, you guys can set up a time to conduct a one-on-one demo, answer any additional personal questions that you might have concerning the program, and get set up with this. Ultimately, our end goal with this is to achieve You know, 100% user rates. Naturally, that's easier said than done, but we really encourage you guys to use this service. It's a free service that ALALM and the AMIC and MWCF is standing behind, and they're sponsoring it. So you've got that free access to a plethora of courses around the clock, 24/7, that we really hope that you guys start to utilize. But it's our purpose, again, our sole purpose, to assist you throughout that entire process. I'm also plugging in our toll-free line. That way, if you have any additional questions, even if Steve is unavailable, you'll be able to actually call our toll-free line, and someone within our team will actually be able to assist you, answer any additional questions you might have, or point you in the right direction. You guys should all see that information in the attendee chat box. Again, we appreciate you guys joining the call today. It doesn't look like there's any other questions coming through, but we certainly hope to follow up with you. Again, this whole webinar has been recorded, so once we have an opportunity to download the recording, put that on our hosting site, we'll be sending that out. So again, feel free to share this information with any other team members who might find value in this. We're just putting these on to try to get the word out and making sure that you all have a solid understanding of how you can utilize this program moving forward. I appreciate you guys' time this morning. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to working with you again soon. Have a great day.